Hey, how you doing? This is Adam Post, publisher of more than 1,000 independent comic books. Today we're talking about Lord of the Rings. It's been sold. The intellectual properties from J.R.R. Tolkien sold to Embracer Group. Embracer Group is a company that's buying up all kinds of intellectual properties and companies. They're mostly known for buying up popular game studios and video game rights. They bought Tomb Raider. They actually also bought out Dark Horse Comics, which I never got a chance to do an article on, and I really want to do it, so I will soon. This is coming from Kotaku. Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit rights bought by a video game super publisher. It's the first time since 1976 that the rights have changed hands like this. Let's get into the article. Before we do, be sure to subscribe to the channel, click the bell for notifications, and give me a thumbs up when you like it. The Embracer Group, who are slowly buying any and every video game publisher and studio on the market, because they are buying a lot, just announced that they've purchased Middle-earth Enterprises, the company that owns the big and small screen rights. The Embracer Group, who are slowly buying any and every video game publisher and studio on the market, just announced they've purchased Middle-earth Enterprises, the company that owns the big and small screen rights to most of J.R.R. Tolkien's most important works, including Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. Some background, and it does get complicated. Middle-earth Enterprises used to be a division of the Saul Zaentz Company, a Hollywood production studio that in 1976 was able to pick up the rights to pretty much everything to do with Tolkien, except the publication of the books themselves. Those rights were used to make the 1978 animated feature, Where There's a Whip, There's a Way. It's a great song from the film. And ever since have only been licensed out to other companies, an operation overseen by Middle-earth Enterprises, and never fully sold. They never fully sold the company. That means everything from Peter Jackson's films to EA's video games were only expensively licensing the Lord of the Rings rights. Amazon's upcoming TV series, meanwhile, relied on a loophole in a contract that excluded a TV series of more than 8 episodes being included within Zaentz's rights. Final ownership still lay with the Saul Zaentz Company and covered a vast intellectual property catalog and worldwide rights to motion pictures, video games, board games, merchandising, theme parks, and stage productions relating to the iconic fantasy literary works The Lord of the Rings trilogy and The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien. Or it did until now. The Saul Zaentz Company floated the sale of their rights earlier this year for an eye-popping $2 billion, saying, hey, if anybody's got $2 billion, we'll take it. You can't blame them for that. If you offer me $2 billion, I'm going to at least look at the offer. It depends what you want. We can talk about it, and it better be all cash, but that ain't bad. And while Embracer's purchase price wasn't disclosed in their announcement, you'd assume the price they paid would be somewhere in the ballpark. Now, this was updated because Embracer Group, which is the company that bought these rights, in a separate announcement, say the total cost for all the acquisitions they made today, and because they bought, of course, more than just the Tolkien rights, they bought a few other stuff, things that are completely unrelated today. So the total acquisition was $770 million, which means much less than $2 billion. How much? Probably half a billion, 500 million, something in that order. But you'll probably see the number eventually. As the announcement says, the purchase covers pretty much everything you'd associate with Lord of the Rings beyond the publishing of the books themselves, whose rights are held by HarperCollins, including key upcoming works set in Middle-earth, in which Middle-earth Enterprises has financial interests, including the much-heralded Amazon series The Lord of the Rings of Power, which will premiere on September 2nd, 2022, set thousands of years before The Hobbit, and Lord of the Rings, the animated movie The Lord of the Rings, The War of the Rohirrim, set for release in 2024, and the mobile game The Lord of the Rings, Heroes of Middle-earth. Okay, so they are tied in with Amazon, and they will participate in Amazon. Will they exert control over the intellectual property rights being exploited in a woke way with Amazon? They're not going to get into that here. We're going to have to see. I assume at some point they'll have a conversation. Note that by purchasing Middle-earth Enterprises itself, Embracer doesn't necessarily need to go cancel or reassign any existing Lord of the Rings rights agreements. Warner Brothers has held the motion picture license since the 1990s, for example. That's how Peter Jackson's trilogy was made. And the upcoming anime is clearly unaffected since it's specifically highlighted in Embracer's announcement. As for what Embracer might want to do with the license in the future, that's spelled out in the press release as well. Quote, other opportunities include exploring additional movies based on iconic characters such as Gandalf, Aragorn, Gollum, Galadriel, Eowyn, and other characters from the literary works of J.R.R. Tolkien, and continue to provide new opportunities for fans to explore this world through merchandising and other experiences. With Embracer owning both a ton of video game studios, they own a lot of video game studios, like multiple, and also board game company Asmodee, who in turn owns Fantasy Flight, you can expect a lot of licensed games to follow suit as well. Note that Asmodee already owned the Lord of the Rings license for board games. And of course, it wouldn't be an Embracer announcement without news that alongside the Middle-earth Enterprises purchase, the company also bought a bunch of other stuff today, including a physical copy specialist limited run games, Tripwire Interactive, Tuxedo Labs, and bizarrely poetic move, given the buyers in question, a Japanese studio, Tatsujin. Their boss is Mashiro Yuji, co-founder of Tollplan, the developers of Zero Wing, the game from which we got All Your Base Are Belong to Us. Oh, the classic meme. Fascinating. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Is this interesting that Lord of the Rings has been sold? I think it's interesting as hell. And the company Embracer Group is pretty damn interesting. You know, this is on their About page. They own 120 video game studios. 120. They own 850 intellectual properties. They have 12,750 employees with 10 operative groups. One of those groups, Dark Horse Comics, a company I've been kind of following since the 1980s back in the day. We were a black and white comics publisher. They were a black and white comics publisher, started by Mike Richardson. We could do a whole article on that. I'm going to put a link to the Dark Horse sale being discussed in Hollywood Reporter in the comments below. Hope you find that interesting. And when I heard that Tomb Raider was sold for $300 million, is sold to Embracer, I was shocked. I was like, how could you sell, the studio and that property for as little as $300 million? Well, one hell of a deal. And now word is the film studios are fighting over the rights and bidding up a bidding war to bring Tomb Raider back. I mean, that's a franchise they're going to be really happy that they own. No question about it. I will see you. This is the whole history of Embracer Group. I'll put a link to this in the description as well. I mean, this could be a really long video if we went over all this. So you can check it out yourself. And if you have any questions about it, let me know. I may do yet more with Embracer Group. They have a YouTube channel as well. And they just actually today released an interim report for Q1. Which basically just goes over their financials and their acquisitions and their businesses and what they're doing. All right, so go ahead and be sure you're subscribed to the channel and click the bell for notifications. And I will see you again soon with another video. And if I don't see you, I will miss you.